As a practitioner in the broad field of governance or communication, what in the course did you find most valuable or useful for your own work in your country?
I mean, the course is very intense. I mean, it's a 10-day course and we went through a lot of material. The thing that struck me the most is how to break down the communication patterns. We did a very interesting scenario where we played different roles, and it gave us a chance to really self-reflect on the communication patterns we use and what really ticks our adversary or the person that we're talking to, and how to really reestablish trust and good negotiation techniques so that the communication ends up being win-win.
What do you think is the value of learning from your peers with you in the room? What did you learn from your colleagues?
I mean, I find this course really interesting since there's a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different experience gaps, and most of my cohorts come from different parts of the world, so it's really interesting to see different case studies and different examples of their countries and how one can relate even though we're so far in distance. It's always a good way to learn different best practices and successful ways of doing things, and also failures.
What was your biggest sort of aha moment in the course? Or light bulb goes off?
That's really tricky. I mean, I think my aha moment came during the discussion about strategic narratives and how to really deconstruct narratives as a whole, and how to understand source credibility, what is true, what is not true, and how we construct different stories and how we live in a world of competing stories.
How much demand do you think there would be for this type of course in your region, and why?
Oh, definitely a lot. I mean, I think the MENA region, and more specifically where I come from, Kuwait, the GCC area, there's a high demand for such high caliber courses where one is really trained on a one-on-one basis with very strong curriculum. I think we need to develop our negotiation skills and understand how communication works, where there's a sender, there's a message, and there's a receiver, and sometimes the message doesn't end up correctly to the receiver because of noise, per se. We also need to learn how to break down the communication patterns between upper management and lower management, and really create some kind of transparency and a flow of communication between both of them, because in the MENA region there's a huge gap between those at the top level and those at the bottom level. And there's a huge misunderstanding, and I think just communication and reform can really help shape a better path towards development.
How do you see this program going forward so that it will address the capacity gaps in your region? What's the ideal future for the project?
The ideal future is to export this program to the MENA region, but create a local adaptability and a flavor to it. There's some aspects of the program that rings true and that could help the region, and others that should just be disregarded completely. And I think those that graduate from the program should really establish a strong network and a strong presence. I view it as being as an international advisory council, where someday eventually we'll all be in strong leadership positions, leading our country, leading our institutions. And I think it would be really good to really share our experiences through an integrated platform, for example.
What kind of institutional support do you think would be necessary to make this project successful and useful going forward?
Come again?
What kind of institutional support do you think would be required to make the project successful going forward?
Well, I think ideally you'd first have to target the public sector, getting, for example, ministries on board, ministers on board, and then also tackling the private sector aspect by targeting big corporations or SMEs, for example, that need such kind of training.
If there's one thing this program should focus on, what do you think it would be?
Crafting messages, how to say the right thing at the right time, and understand really what ticks human behaviors and what words work with people and what words maybe can inflame situations. I think that's really key, and that makes a huge difference, whether it's at a relationship level, at an employee and a boss level, and even outside the institution itself.
One of the objectives of this partnership between the World Bank and the Annenberg schools is to build regional networks of professionals working on governance issues from a range of different sectors, including private, public, NGO, multilaterals, etc., using strategic communication. So So what do you think these networks should try to accomplish first and foremost?
I think they should first be thought leaderships. That's one. Really establish a community within their institution of leaders and disseminate the knowledge they got from the course. That's one aspect of it. Two, try to do some good, and good can be perceived as something physical, maybe creating some kind of project, or even just disseminating knowledge itself, creating hope to other people, giving them some tools and basic knowledge that they could maybe improve or advance their careers.
How do you think you could contribute to the development and sustaining of the new network that we're trying to develop?
That's always a tough question, but I strongly believe that, we're all a domino in the world, and that if I can say something or create some kind of good vibe to other people, that it will rub off eventually on them. And ideally, I think that's what's the goal of the program. Each person should be a thought leader and should be an ambassador to the program, and really spreading the tools and the knowledge that we got from the program. And eventually, it will just trickle down.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you.